Hey everyone, welcome back to today's view. My name is Elton.
My name is Amrinder. Welcome.
Welcome, guys. Thank you for watching us on our last episode there on YouTube and on Spotify. So, if you guys want to watch us or listen to us, just follow us on todaysview.ca. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about, government spending and the lack of accountability. And starting off with Emrinder's favorite app, the Arrive Can.
The Arrive Can. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have it installed on my phone. Do you have it on your phone?
No,
Okay.
I never
You
installed.
haven't
I
tra-
haven't traveled
you haven't
in
traveled.
three
Okay, so you
years,
haven't left
except
the
for
phone.
maybe locally to
Yeah.
Quebec or Manitoulin
Okay.
Island.
So I had to use it because in August I was in Buffalo for a family event. So I was there around August 1st, and I used the app. So I'll share my experience a little bit with the app. So it took me once I downloaded the app, it took me 15 to 20 minutes to pretty much input all my details and my family's details. So I can do pretty much my family members in it.
Okay.
Right, 4 or 5 family members I can do in it. So not everybody has to do it in the family. It's just one person can do it. So it took me 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm pretty tech savvy. So
Right.
I had all the PDFs ready on my Google Drive and everything, and I'm pretty tech savvy. So I did it in 15, 20 minutes. I can see a person who's not very tech savvy to take longer. Or a person, well, if they don't have a smartphone, they're out of luck. But that's something we'll talk about in a bit.
So the whole point of the Arrive Can app was basically to let the people or the border and the government know that you are vaccinated and you're not feeling symptoms of COVID-19, right?
Yeah. And if you are feeling symptoms, then maybe they can quarantine or something. So once I filled in the application, the other challenge I had is I inputted that I'm going to cross the Rainbow Bridge, right, which is the main Niagara Falls bridge for private vehicles, private passenger vehicles. So I inputted that, but because of traffic, I ended up going to the other bridge, Peace Bridge, and I didn't find an option while I was waiting in line there. I didn't find an option to edit that. So I'm like, okay, I'll leave it. If they ask me, I'll let them know. Here's the situation. So, and then it being the long weekend. We came back on Monday, the long weekend. There was traffic. So there was long lines.
Like the normal type of traffic crossing the land border?
It was a little bit more than usual. And it took us almost for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to cross. It took a long time. And they didn't ask me for the app or whether I filled it out. But I did see another person being asked, and then they had to present their phone to the agent. So that was my experience. And then the other thing, a few days later, so my wife and I were vaccinated, double boosted. But then obviously my 9-year-old daughter and my kids, 2 other kids, they're not vaccinated. They're all under 12. So I received a call a few days later asking about my daughter and if she's vaccinated or not. So then I said no. The lady said that, okay, because you're vaccinated and she's not, she doesn't have to quarantine. So I'm like, okay, that was a useless call. So I don't know why that call was necessary, but just to kind of give you an idea of what the whole background was. So that was my experience on using the Arrive Can app.
Okay, so yeah, they started this all because of COVID and whatnot. And I really didn't see a point of it. Not because I'm anti-vaccine or whatnot, but how is this any different from if the border guard was to ask you the same questions, right?
So I get that, if they were to ask these questions, let's say there were 10 to 14 questions saying, do you have any coughs? Do you have any fever? Have you traveled here? Have you traveled there? If they ask you that question right at the booth, it might take a little bit longer, right? And there might be a little back and forth. You're wearing a mask. You can't, regardless, you do have to talk. They still ask you a few questions. But I'm thinking it might cause a little bit extra time. But you're right. Like, do we really need the app? Could we not have? I mean, we already had the vaccination certificate through the QR code. Why can we not show that as an example? So I understand it might reduce the traffic a little bit, 100%. But was it needed overall? So what are some of the benefits of the app? I think the app was needed at the beginning, 100%. We wanted to see who's coming in. We wanted to control it a little bit. But at the same time, as of right now, I think we need to get rid of it. And
Well, yeah, and I know it's been on the news recently. There were talks that it might be optional.
yeah, so what's happening is at the end of this month, that's when the restrictions expire, and the government wants they can still extend it like they have in the past. So, but the rumor is they might, Trudeau, please do it. They might they might not renew it, and they might just scrap this. And I think it's needed. I think at this point they've seen a lot of people crossing, and I bet you even the CBSA officers are pretty much tired of dealing with people who don't want to present or who don't
Right.
want to deal with it.
I know there have been videos of people, bypassing this or just saying like, I don't have to present you my
Medical history
or whatnot. Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
And it's kind of silly because if you're going to show your passport, what's the big difference, right?
Exactly,
Like,
yeah, yeah. But I understand people are like, some people on the right will be my rights. You're invading my rights. But at the same time, I understand why it was needed at the beginning. Do we need it now? No, we could have scrapped it as soon as we stopped the masks mandates. We stopped asking people to wear masks in public and stuff.
Yeah.
That's when it should have been dropped. It should have been dropped a months ago, not now.
yeah, and when I came to Canada in 2003, I remember the SARS outbreak, and that was a crazy thing back then, but not as crazy as COVID. And I know the airports at the time, especially here in Pearson Airport in Toronto, they did have machines that would monitor your temperature. So it was like a thermal camera.
Okay.
So when you're walking through, they will they'll notice your temperature, body heat.
Yep.
And if something was abnormal, they would pull you into the second queue and ask you questions. And I know COVID is a little bit different where it's not a temperature change, it's like, cough and whatnot. But at the same time, they could have had CBSA agents trained on it and ask you certain questions. Because, again, all this app did from the sounds of it was you pre-filled it, put your documentation and sent it. It sounds like this app could have done a different option where instead of talking about COVID, we could have done this at the airports where we're like, okay, instead of going and touching screens at the airport where you're pre-filling stuff.
I agree. It makes sense, especially when people are coming from, by flight, especially. This is more like at the airports. So there's a few options. The old method used to be you fill out a paper declaring this is how much, customs and all that, right? And then you still go through some of these kiosks and you're touching these screens, which is, especially when you're dealing with COVID or other, you shouldn't be. It's not like they're cleaning it, wiping it every time somebody touches it. So there is that. So 100% in those situations, yes, I think it might be beneficial to fill out an app, but an option should be there. Hey, I want to fill out the app. I feel comfortable, and I do everything through the app, and I get a QR code. I can show that to the officer when I get to immigration, sure. But other people who don't have smartphones, who
they can go manually,
who have privacy concerns, I completely understand. Then they can certainly do the manual way of doing it on paper. That's where you can speed up the airport lines. I agree with that.
I know the airports right now, they have kiosks, and then you just kind of show the paper to the end at the end of the lineup to the CBSA officer. But yeah, so I feel like instead of doing this ArriveCan app just for COVID, they could have obviously done it for this.
Agreed.
And that could have made it even better with the lineups. I know with the kiosk, they need to take a picture of you when you arrive. So I think even the phone can do that as well, right?
That. There's technologies there. We can certainly do it. And then at the end, you can be presented with a QR code, and you show the QR code. The officer can scan the QR code and then get all the information.
I feel like these kiosks, you're spending so much money on that.
It is.
You could probably use your phone, and it's like, hey, why not use people's phones?
Agreed.
Right?
And some of these kiosks are either down or there's a huge backlog line.
Exactly.
People wanting to go through these kiosks. The other thing I want to talk about is how using the app, and if you did it perfectly, you follow the instructions, you did it perfectly, there was a glitch in the app and also through an update or something, which caused a lot of people who were vaccinated
or not,
being asked to quarantine.
Yeah.
Which was
I remember
which is
seeing
not
that.
right. So imagine if you you were fully vaccinated, double boosted or more. You filled the app, you did everything, and then you come back and you're being asked to quarantine for 14 days or 10 days, wherever the case may be. That I think is a big slap in the face. You're following everything that they're doing, and then you're still getting this. And obviously, later on they corrected it, whatever the case may be. But that was a big screw up. Like
that happened recently, and
right?
apparently it was due to an app update.
Yeah. So that's a.
But
that's
let's
a
talk about cost about this app. So like the whole point of this episode was to to talk about government spending here.
Yeah.
So apparently it was the CBSA that spent the money, but obviously CBSA is part of the government here.
Taxpayers, yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So as per this global news article, CBSA spent 24.7 million developing and maintaining this app.
Wow, that's a lot. 24.7, almost $25 million.
Yeah, and then they spent an additional 2.2 million on advertising.
Okay,
which is kind of
that's
up there.
That it's high. Advertising, you do have to let the whole country know. So I understand that aspect of it. You have to, put it out there on radio. You have to put it on there.
The whole problem with this is though, it's not even the whole country that needed to know this. It's visitors coming to Canada.
That too, yeah.
Right.
Agreed, yeah,
did we spend money in foreign countries there?
That's true. We could have. Now that makes sense. But 24.7 million developing and maintaining the app. I mean, the app, and I have a background in IT, but the app is just asking some questions and you upload 2 PDF documents.
Yeah.
So
and it goes to a server. Not to get technical with you guys, but I was in IT as well.
Yeah. So we know the background of how it happens, but the app should have not cost more than $1 million. It should be under $1 million. I bet you we can get it done for a few $100,000. But let's say you need a group. You hire a company. They do it. It shouldn't cost more than $1 million. Okay.
Yeah, I see the problem. What happened here was there was no open bidding on this, and maybe there is a legitimate excuse for why they did this or not. It's up to you guys to decide.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, they had to rush some things, and I don't think they needed this. I feel like this app was not needed. So they went through a no bidding process and went with a few companies that they already had contracts with. And, obviously with no bidding, you're not getting the best bang for your buck. And you're just going with some company.
And let's say there was an urgency. Let's say they need to get it out there. The challenge here I see is the cost is really high. So I think there should be somebody auditing, somebody checking why that much was spent, and maintaining it should be no more than a few $100,000.
Right. Because
it shouldn't cost
there's only
that much.
There's only two type of smartphones, right? And that's basically Apple, iOS, and Androids. It doesn't take, I don't know, that much millions to maintain this app, especially when all you're doing is communicating with the server and just uploading stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's something crazy there.
So the other thing I want to talk about, I mean, the cost was high, 100%. We need to look into that. We need to ask questions, and these are important because this is taxpayers' money. That's $25 million. Let's say we could have saved, which wasn't needed to, as you said, spend. We didn't need to spend it, but at the same time, could have been reduced quite a lot, right? So,
and the question is, what about people with no smartphones or like elderly people that are not using the?
So there should be. I understand, not everybody has a phone. So
or not everyone carries a smartphone.
Exactly.
Obviously now everybody does. Yeah. Obviously, but
you can't force
the
somebody
elderly
to.
people.
Let's say if my dad uses an old flip phone, you can't be like, hey, now you're crossing the border. You have to get somebody to bring a phone or something. So I think the way they should have done it. Right now, it seemed like everybody had to do it. They should have said, you know what. If you don't have a smartphone or something, there's, let's say, 7 stations open, and when you're crossing the border, let's say by land, I'm just giving an example. There should be 1 or 2 booths where you can say, one booth at least, you can say, hey, if you don't have ArriveCAN or if you need help, come to this booth, and you should be able to get that.
Yeah,
right?
and that's the whole point. I feel like, was this app really needed? Because you can do it in person with the CBSA officer, because the CBSA already asked you questions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right,
so
and
what's an extra? You're right. What's an extra 30 seconds to a minute or a minute and a half, 2 minutes maybe extra? It was
because obviously CBSA wouldn't be like, are you coughing? Do you feel this? Have you been with? It's like, hey, are you feeling well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, people will say, well, maybe they lied to CBSE officer.
Exactly.
But the people can lie on the app too.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Agreed.
what's there in the app that can stop a person from either lying or whatnot? I just feel like there was no worth to this.
100%.
20, let's say close to 30 million. Let's just say 30 million was spent on this app.
Yeah. And ongoing maintenance, so it's probably close. It is going to be, because this article is from a few months ago, so it's probably going to be like close to 30 million at the end.
And
right?
here's
so
my issue
right?
now, right? We are filming this and shooting this in September here, and they are talking about making it optional.
Yeah.
Now, when you make it optional, what is the purpose of this app now, right? What's the if if you're going through the airport or going through the land border, or what? If I'm not filling this out, then why are we keeping this app up,
Exactly.
right? Just so that one or two people might fill it up?
Use it, exactly. Yeah. No,
right?
I wouldn't. Once it becomes, let's say it becomes voluntary, right? I wouldn't use it, 100%.
Yeah, because
I would not
why?
use it.
We are creatures of comfort. Why are we going to go through this hassle of filling something out when it's optional?
No, I don't mind. I don't mind showing people like the QR code if they want to see it. Hey, I've been double vaccinated. Sure, if they want to see it, sure. But at this point, we're over a year since we got those shots.
And honestly,
at this point, they're not effective either, right?
It made sense to ask about your COVID or vaccination status for COVID at the start of this. But if Ontario dropped the restaurants or any service centers asking you about your vaccination status,
then why
we don't need it to enter because and honestly, this is where the government failed us. At the height of COVID, we were not letting people travel. And when I say we, I'm talking about the government. Right? And then all of a sudden, the airports were closed to international travel, but really it was not. People were still traveling. And land borders were still open. People from the States, and majority of the people in the States were anti-COVID or anti-vaccine. And they were crossing into our borders and spreading COVID. Especially the cases in British Columbia. Right? So this is where the government failed us. If they really wanted to stop this, they could have done other things. These apps that they made was just like a low-hanging fruit. Like, we're taking care of you, blah, blah, blah. So
the other thing to think about is other than this $30 million or more we're going to spend on this app is how much revenue has the Canadian side of Niagara Falls lost because, and the U.S. side is probably as well, because they're frustrated as well. They think their government, because when it crossed to the U.S. they didn't ask anything.
That was this year.
Exactly.
But did you cross the border at the height of COVID?
No, I didn't. But what I'm saying is right now we're talking about, like, especially when mask mandates were lifted and everything, we should have done away with the ArriveCan at that time.
That's true.
But right now, even if somebody wants to cross, they have to use the ArriveCan app. So look how much tourism we're losing. Look how much tourism we're losing in Niagara Falls and even on the other side of Canada and BC as well. So there's a lot of revenue being lost on both sides, Canada
especially
and US.
International travels, right? Like if I was from a different country and I've never traveled to Canada and I all of a sudden land here and I'm like, oh, I need an app.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? If anything, their kiosks should have asked these questions.
Yeah.
Oh, can you show me a picture of this? Take a picture of the.
Yeah.
So I feel like this ArriveCan was a total failure. This is $30 million that we spent, and some people might say there was benefits. I personally, from listening to you, it just didn't make sense to me, right?
Yeah, especially when we had the QR code. That we, the application.
For the vaccination
the other challenge we had was at the beginning we started with, you gotta show your vaccination certificate, like a PDF document, when you go somewhere, restaurant, wherever. Then it became every province started doing their own thing instead of a national level. They started doing their own thing. So I know there were points where we traveled from here to Quebec, and then we tried showing a vaccine, but they have a different system. It was disastrous. It should have been national. Sure, you do the QR code, you show the QR code, you're good to go. That's how it should be. And why can't we use that QR code when we're crossing the borders? Yeah, 100%. It was not necessary.
Yeah, this is
very little benefit for the money we spent.
This is where the federal government just didn't take responsibility and leading it, because I know provinces make their own different rules, but since this is of national interest, this is where
this is a pandemic.
This is where the Trudeau government or the Liberals should have been like, if you guys, because there are provinces that develop their own apps, and then for Trudeau to come 6 months later or a few months later, I'm not sure, but for him to come and change some things and says, "Oh, we'll develop our app. Now it has to be." How are these provinces going to get their money back, right?
Yeah, it was just a way. So along with 30, we probably spent other millions that we spent on other applications
Right.
as well.
So for instance, like one province taxpayer paid twice now.
Yeah.
They paid for a province app, and now they
and
paid for a
national app. Yeah.
right. So that's one thing.
Speaking of apps, I know your favorite app. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that now. The COVID exposure app. Let's talk about that. Okay.
Right. Let's talk about the cost about that. But since we're always talking about cost about the last one,
Okay.
so I
to compare.
to compare. So
This is I'm guessing, like, this is without me you telling me the numbers. I'm gonna guess the COVID exposure app should cost more to develop and maintain because it requires location and stuff. The other one was very simple. Is that right? Am I
no,
am I right?
that's unfortunately false.
What?
The government decides to do something totally different here.
Okay.
So they spent 20 million.
Okay.
Apparently 15.9 million was spent on promotion and advertising.
Yeah, 15.9. So it's a
So
local
15
COVID
point-
exposure app. So let me get this straight.
So let's tell the people what this is,
Okay.
in case some people don't know,
So
right?
what is a COVID exposure app?
So this COVID exposure app, you download it, for your
it was
phone.
optional. It wasn't mandatory.
It wasn't mandatory. You put it on your phone, and if you came into contact with someone that might have had COVID, not necessarily because you know that person. Let's say you're in the shopping mall and whatnot.
Yeah.
Your phone would buzz, letting you know that, hey, there was a person in your vicinity that had COVID.
Okay.
The problem with this app is it depended on people's goodwill to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Which means if I had COVID, I would have to get a code from the hospital. So that means I had to go get tested at the hospital, and which there were plenty of lineups there.
Yep.
I would have to get the special code, and then I would have to put it on my phone.
Yep.
And then the phone would notify, I don't know
Other
what.
people. So you had the app. I had the app.
Yeah.
Did you get even one alert?
No, and I'll tell you.
I did not either.
I'll tell you why I feel like this one failed.
Yeah. So let's talk about the cost. Sorry, going back to the cost. So you're saying 20 million overall to the app cost that much. 15.9 million was spent on promotion and advertising versus 2 point something million on the other app, which was internationally needed. This one was pretty much nationally
And apparently,
needed.
they spent 3.5 million developing this app and maintaining it.
Wow.
Now we got this numbers from CBC article.
Yeah.
Right, and the previous article for the ArriveCan, we got that from the Global News article here. So I feel like the way these apps were developed shouldn't have costed this much.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
Right?
A few 100,000, sure, million, around there. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, so this COVID exposure app is a little bit more intensive in the type of software it needs to use.
Because of location data and all of that.
Location data, and
inputting
then letting other phones know, because obviously you got to communicate.
Yeah.
So not to try to get too technical with everybody here, but if you're just answering questions and you're uploading it to a main server, that shouldn't have cost. And this is the ArriveCan app. This shouldn't have cost 20.
So 2.2 million, spent on advertising versus 15.9 million. I'm just baffled. Like, why do we need to spend that much money?
Unless these articles that we're looking at mixed up their numbers, right? I can't see how
exactly.
the ArriveCan app was 2.2 on advertising and promotion advertising, and then the COVID exposure app was 15.9.
Yeah,
that's some crazy discrepancies.
And on top of that, as I said, from family, friends, and who've downloaded it, nobody's really gotten any use of it. Nobody got it.
And going back to what I was going to say, why I feel like this was a failure. I work in the healthcare industry, right? And I've worked with people that do come into contact with patients that have COVID. Some of these people did get COVID from these patients. And I've been in contact with these guys.
And you got no alert.
And I didn't get no alert.
So that's what I mean. Another waste of taxpayers' money, development. That's a disaster.
And I know this was more like an optional thing. This is like for the ease of mind for people. But I don't think it was needed.
No, it wasn't needed. This completely, like, it wouldn't have helped anybody. As I said, question, did it even work? As I said, I never got an alert. You never got an alert. My family, friends who've downloaded it never got an alert. So I think it was just a complete money waste at all.
The numbers that was provided in the
Yeah.
article didn't show much
Yeah.
of the exposure
Yeah.
alerts.
Yeah.
Right, we are a land of millions, and it
Yeah.
was actually in the tens of thousands
Yeah,
that the alerts went out.
exactly. And the question is, were those even accurate? That's another thing. So,
Yeah,
another waste of money.
because
It
for
doesn't
this
make
to
sense.
work, we have our own home test that we can
Yep.
get, right?
Yep.
And then the hospital has their test.
Yeah,
For this to work, you need to be tested at the hospital.
hospital. Yeah,
And hospital lineups were crazy.
exactly. Where they were telling people not to go to the hospital, use the kit. So it was
Yeah,
pointless.
and
Pointless.
at some points where the hospitals were so backlogged, they said, "Hey, if you feel this, then just quarantine.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't bother testing."
Don't bother coming in because
Yeah.
you're getting other people sick. You're coming in more contact. Let's say
Right.
you were negative. You go there, you can end up becoming
Well,
positive.
some of
right?
these tests, or from the hospitals I've seen here in Mississauga, was more like a drive-through test.
Yeah, that made sense.
Right, and
Yeah.
but the point is, for this app to have worked, we needed a test.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, how about if we just put in the app here? Oh, hey, I got tested for COVID,
Yeah,
or I feel positive.
yeah.
Right? Why go through this nonsense of, oh, here's a special code, enter this, blah blah blah.
Oh my God.
Right?
Again,
So-
which required more development, which required more money, and that's where we're wasting money on things. Like
I mean,
this.
I'll give credit to the government. Yes, maybe they did this to ease the mind of people.
Yeah,
But by looking at these numbers, let's calculate now. Both these numbers,
Mm-hmm.
we're close to 30 million for the ArriveCan.
and 20 million for this.
This is 50 million. We
50
could have
million.
used for ourselves to reduce the deficit
Exactly.
in our government.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because as Trudeau say, it will balance the budget by itself.
yeah.
The complete bullshit there, right? So, again, these two apps, I for the life of me can't see
Yeah.
how it would be beneficial to
Yeah,
all of us
yeah,
here.
Yeah. Agreed.
Maybe the ArriveCan and like we were saying, the ArriveCan could be morphed into something else now.
Yeah, you can, and as I said, when you're coming international travels coming to the 3 airports, it makes sense. But anything else, no.
Yeah.
And even then, it requires. As I said, there should always be an option for paper. There should always be an option for people who don't have smartphones, and there should always be, people have privacy concerns, and they have the right to be. Everything can be hacked, even the servers, government servers, everything.
Yeah.
CRA, everything, everybody can get hacked. So if somebody does have a privacy concern, they want to fill it on paper, that option should be there, 100%.
Again, 50 million.
Yeah, I know. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, so if ArriveCan can be morphed into
Yeah.
an app for CBSA, that'd
Yeah.
be great. Whereas you check in how long you're going to stay there for, blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Exactly. And customs and stuff. Sure, why not? At
Yeah,
that
custom
point,
do
that
custom
makes
paid
sense.
stuff
Exactly.
instead of like all this medical
Yeah.
nonsense,
Agreed.
right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, so sticking to the theme of
Mm-hmm.
spending money and creating useless stuff. Let's talk about everyone's favorite now, Phoenix system.
Oh my God, Phoenix Peak system.
Yeah, the Phoenix Pay system, which is going to be scrapped soon, but not only scrapped, it's going to be replaced after a short 10, 12 years.
Wow. Short, eh?
Short, after spending a lot of money.
What is the Phoenix Pay system? If you can just kind of go over that a little bit.
So the government introduced the Phoenix Pay system for its employees,
Government employees, yeah.
for the government employees that are getting paid, and to keep track of their pay,
Yeah.
keep track of sick days, keep track of vacation pay,
Yeah.
days pay, whatever, anything related to the government, right? And obviously, if you're listening from outside of Canada, this system really went off with a bang. And when I say it went off with a bang, people were not getting paid for a few months to years. I've met people, and this is like a serious national interest where the people that were affected were also CBSA officers. So CBSA are border patrol, right? I've known a few people that haven't been paid in a year.
Wow. I mean,
Right?
how do you even survive at that point?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some are paycheck to paycheck, and you're not paying somebody for a year, and again, a government employee, that is bizarre.
And we've seen some articles where, like you said, people are living paycheck to paycheck. There was this one video I saw quite a while ago. Basically, a student who's doing like internship,
Yep.
right? He's doing the internship on the premise of getting paid so that he can pay for his class. He wasn't getting paid, unable to pay rent. He can't attend that job.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And he had to find another job, but he needed this job to graduate.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right?
So that's
And-
a disaster. And then again, a lot of people probably dealt with the tenant issues and everything like that, if they have to pay rent or mortgage, imagine how you, and now that person probably turn around and sued the government, and here we're losing more taxpayers' money. So overall, the systems, they say Phoenix Pay system could have cost a total of $2.6 billion dollars, and they're saying now it started back in like 2010, right? As per the article, and now they're going to
CBC article
they're
here.
going to scrap it and they're going to replace it with another program. Great, and there goes more money. The question is, why can't, I mean, there are other systems, so like ADP and other systems. Why can't they just use that? Like, why do we need to spend that much money? So again, an audit, I think, is needed. Learn from this, make sure this same kind of mistake doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, my question here is, was there a need for another pay system?
Yeah, that's the question. If it works, why change it, right?
Exactly.
Like, you know,
So maybe they had an archaic system. Maybe it was too slow or whatever the case might be. But 2.6 billion for government employees.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they don't have a lot of employees for them to spend 2.6 billion, right?
Wow.
And it's not like they're all related. It's separate departments, right? Shouldn't it have been better? Like, oh, the main office will limit your department to this budget. Use it wisely. Even each of them have their own.
I mean, overall, there are a lot of government employees, and I think they're trying to make a system that kind of work in all platforms. And I think this was a big failure. But you know, we're talking about like, you know, probably hundreds of thousands of employees here nationally, right? So if you are updating a system, it makes sense, but do it properly. Like, think about it before implementing anything this heavy. One thing is, if you know the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, is can we go with it for how much longer? If we need to fix it, have a proper plan in place, have proper things in place, do a lot of testing, and you know, and if you're gonna, that's a lot of money, and then to scrap it and now go to another system, and it's been going on since 2010. That's a big disaster, you know, big disaster. So
2.6 billion. We could have easily used that for something else, right? And
100%.
you know, our deficit in the government is just crazy, and for them to have this money, you know, like that's crazy. And then this leads us to another issue with government where we're not holding them accountable for this. So the other issue we've had is the Ontario plates.
So let's talk about Doug Ford's amazing plan, brilliant plan.
So for people outside of Ontario and outside of Canada, we have premiers that's kind of like prime minister or the president, but we have a premier of Ontario. Right. When he got into office, we had license plates. Nothing wrong with it. It was like white background with the
in Ontario,
blue letters.
We need license plates on the front and back, which I'll talk about in my pet peeve. But
we had these plates that were, just to give a vocal description about this. It was a white background with blue letterings.
Yeah. Easy to see.
Easy to see. Nothing.
Can capture them.
And it said yours to discover at the bottom. That's it. You know, no fancy plate. It's just a regular plate. Dougford came in, and he's the leader of the Conservative Party, which is blue. Decides to change the plates to background blue and the letters into white.
Okay.
Which seems fine. You guys might think, oh, it's nothing. For guys that's watching us on YouTube, we're going to show you what it looks like in the dark, where the cops couldn't read it.
So it became a visibility issue. So without proper testing, we go ahead and change these plates, which you didn't really need to do.
And apparently
it makes no benefits.
He claimed these were tested.
Okay.
I'm not sure
so
how.
Anyways, so we test. Yeah, sure. Okay. So we put these plates on the road, and then months later, they're not properly visible. We start getting feedback, and now we roll around. So just to kind of give you an idea. So we went something that, again, added little to no value. I don't know what the goal behind was, other than making the blue and you know, branding it to, I did this for Ford. There was nothing. So each plate was costing like $4.54 instead of $3 something. So at the end, ended up costing taxpayers over $1 million, 1.15 million, a 26% increase.
Yeah, so
makes no sense. What I would have done if I was Ford, and I would have been a supporter of this, is get rid of the front license plate. just keep the rear, keep it the same.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, 50% drop in manufacturing cost probably, and then you got car enthusiasts happy because I hate that license plate on the front. Similar vehicles.
I think the only reason they want front license plates for like commercial vehicles, right? If they're towing a trailer or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, if it works in a lot of American states and if it works in Quebec, why do it here? And as I said, drops cost.
Yeah.
And as I said, there wasn't really. I read an article somewhere. They said it didn't really add much benefit. Having a front license plate or not. Sure. So that's another disaster. And we're not still pointing at like liberals did this and just liberals. We're talking about any person, any government entity that's wasted taxpayers' money and where they should be held accountable, right?
Yeah.
So
apparently, you were saying it was like $4.54 a plate.
Yeah.
And apparently, we were looking at the numbers here, and it said it cost the government $1 million.
Yeah.
Or taxpayers, if anything, right?
Over $1 million. What a waste. What a waste.
Originally,
Something
they
that
thought
was
the
not
redesign would have been like a few $100,000, and obviously this went. So what's happened now is the blue plates have been recalled.
Yeah.
And they're still issuing white plates.
Yeah,
right?
we're back to white plates again. So there was a no. It was
So obviously it was a stunt by the Ford government.
Yeah.
To make it more conservative looking plate. Nobody really cared about a blue looking plate. The white plate was fine.
Exactly.
And what did we do? We didn't even hold him accountable.
Exactly.
Right? Like he still got reelected.
Yeah.
He still got reelected because
yeah.
he thought the plates needed changing.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting for my dollar beer, but that's not happening anytime either. So, right? He could have used this money to actually fix our freaking healthcare system.
Yeah. Something like, something where we need the money. Like, why
put money into the retirement homes.
Again,
no,
if it ain't broke, why fix it? This is a perfect example. The license plates had no issues. If anything, you can work on maybe better printing because I know a lot of them are peeling off lately versus the older plates. They used to stick on better.
The new
because plates are peeling off.
Everyone is being greedy and they're just taking money and cheapening out on things.
So instead of improving that, you go ahead and change the license plate. Cost money. Then we have to revert back to where we were.
Yeah,
useless. Absolutely useless.
And and he did this political stunt, and we're not even holding him accountable.
That's
we even this freaking ArriveCan app.
Yeah,
like we're not holding people accountable. Like, is it really useful?
So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Now on to the worst deal in Canadian history, I think.
Definitely worst deal for sure.
Okay, so 407. Let's talk about 407.
407, everyone's favorite, right?
Yes. So 407. So under the Harris government, again, we're talking about conservative government here. We leased. So first we built the 407. Ended up costing like 1.5 billion or more, and then we take people's land, Canadians' lands, and we built this highway. It's a toll route now, and then we know what we do. We turn around and we sell it to a foreign company.
Mm-hmm.
SNC-Lavalin has a stake. Other companies from Quebec have it, and then majority of the stake goes to this foreign company. Why? And it was sold at 3.1 billion.
Back in 99,
and it's probably worth over 30 billion at this point. It is worth over 30 billion at this point. So
just people be aware of. We're talking about a toll route highway that we have.
So
in
Canada
Ontario.
has all the highways are basically not tolled except for one, which is the 407, and for version of the 407, the 412 or whatever. But it runs through the GTA mostly onto the east end of Toronto, and it's the only highway that's tolled in Canada.
Right. And obviously it's a beautiful highway. It's well maintained.
Yeah.
Lack of traffic.
Yeah.
They built that highway with the vision of the future where there'll be a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
Right? It's like 5-6 lane highway.
Well built.
Yeah.
Well run, no doubt about it.
Way better than the 401. 401 we're down to like 3 to 4 lanes.
Yep.
Express and whatnot collectors.
Yeah, at certain parts. Yeah.
And 407, honestly, I don't know. I was not in this country at that time.
Yeah.
I came here in 2003.
Yeah.
But from listening to this, I don't know why we sold it.
Yeah, it was I mean, it was a disaster. 99-year lease. So until 2098, hopefully the world will be around by then.
Yeah.
This is given to a foreign company. And it's sad. I mean, why could they not have said, you know what, this company is gonna, or you know what, open up to the public. Hey guys, who wants shares into this company? And I bet you a lot of Canadians would have stepped up and said, hey, I want to buy shares in here, or I want to buy so why not open it up? Why are we doing these backdoor deals to private companies? I bet you somebody got paid, for this.
Yeah, why yeah, you're right. Why not have shareholders and be like,
Yeah.
hey, you're the public, go buy it if you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
Give everyone a fair bidding process.
Yeah, exactly.
How much stake do you want to own?
Yeah.
And sell it.
Open
right?
it up to the public, man. I bet you a lot of people who bought shares back then and now they would have been millionaires.
Yeah,
It's what I mean. Like, why are foreign company of all the, what I'm saying? I understand certain companies are, from Quebec and whatnot, but majority of the stake is foreign. That is a big screw up, in my opinion. And I we need to hold, and I think he was reelected after this.
Yeah, so I'm reading this article, and he says, and it says here he got reelected in '99 there. So it's crazy. And what I find funny is, yes, we sold it to a foreign government or foreign company, sorry, which is weird because here, if you want to open an airline or you want to own a telecom system, you cannot be un-Canadian.
Exactly.
Right?
So with telecoms, with airlines, no. You need to have 51% stake of Canadian ownership and all of that, where we need the competition, and we don't really care that much as long as our data is cheaper and all of that,
Exactly.
right? Telecommunications.
Yeah.
And here we are, our own private road, and you take people's land to make this, and on top of that you kind of give it to a foreign company where we have no control on the tolls.
Yeah.
So the tolls have gone up. Oh my God. I remember when first started taking it in early 2000s, it was in under 15 cents and whatnot per kilometer, even during peak hours. And now it's gotten ridiculous. At times it's over $1 for certain, per kilometer. That's crazy. Again, the most expensive toll, I bet you, in the world.
Yeah.
Why are we paying this many?
And this leads up to another issue where, that's why the 413 is talked about, right? 413 or 419?
413.
413. So
new highway they're proposing. Yeah.
I bet you if this was still owned by us, we wouldn't need 413.
Yes and no. Yes, meaning the money we're spending on it, all these taxpayers, is going out of the country. That's one problem.
That's one problem.
That's one problem. Second is, I think infrastructure-wise, we're not. I mean, versus some of the other countries, I think we're a little bit behind. We definitely need a 413, I think, many years ago, but it's still being debated. Some people say, it's going to save whatever, 5-10 minutes or so. No. I mean, you go to the 401 right now around Milton, in Ontario, and you'll notice how much backlog it creates. By opening the extra lanes, it makes a huge difference. And then you're not, it actually saves gas, less pollution as well. When a car is driving smoothly, you burn less pollution than stop and go.
Oh, for sure. But I feel like because the 407 is tolled, not a lot of people are taking it, and we're stuck on the 401.
That's why.
I feel like if the 407 was open, we probably would not need the 413. We need the data to see how much traffic is being used.
We'll talk about 413 on a separate video, but I think it's needed because it'll cut through, different variations, and I think more highways we have, the better. It'll cause less traffic. Yeah. I think the problem was if you were to open up 407, all the people from 401 take the 407, now 407 backlog. I already see a huge difference from when I first started taking it to now. I already see now is starting to cause a little bit of slowness at certain times, where you're paying for it and you're still sometimes going through a little bit of traffic. So it's making a difference already. So that's another big cost again on taxpayers, and our money is going outside the country. Whereas we could have all benefited from it, right? Had it been
it's
local
funny, and not only is it going to, the foreign company. There's another company that was involved with this, right? So apparently SNC Lavalin had a 10% stake, or sorry, they sold a 10% stake very recently.
They sold it for $3.25 billion. So that's why the valuation is right now, the highway is worth more than $30 billion.
So the government sold it for $3.1 billion. SNC Lavalin sold 10%
in 2019.
In 2019, yeah, in 2019 they sold 10% of their stake for 3.25,
which is the whole,
and they still retain a stake.
Yeah, they still have like I think 6% or so, right?
Yeah, so SNC-Lavalin still owns the stake. Now, here's the thing. SNC sold it to another company, or they sold it to a pension plan, OMERS. OMERS is a pretty big thing here.
Yeah.
They are a pension plan for teachers, police officers, basically a lot of people.
Yeah.
They even own the Rogers thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know about that one. That's another topic, I think. So OMERS has some issues I have with them as well.
Yeah.
So that's crazy that when SNC sold their stake, they didn't even bother to say, hey, do people, the public, want to buy this off us?
Agreed. Backdoor deals being made. I 100% agree. There should be an option, especially when we're talking about a government-owned asset.
Exactly.
It should be...
The taxpayers spent money on this.
Exactly.
And we were left out of this deal.
And we're not benefit. Yeah. So we used they used, and again, I think it was very smart of them, use the government to build it so they can take the land and, all of that. And then at the end, sell it to your sweetheart company, and make money from it. It's so unethical. And again, we paid for it and we're not benefiting for it. You know.
And this is what sucks, that people don't trust the government. We are as taxpayers, we are paying for our stuff, and we're not even taking care of or getting a return off it.
Yeah.
What's our return at the 407? We are paying tolls now.
Exactly.
So on top of us building it, now we're paying to use our own product.
Exactly. And then money's going out.
Stuff.
And money's going out of the country.
Yeah.
Speaking of SNC-Lavalin.
Yeah, SNC-Lavalin, everyone's favorite company.
Yeah.
There.
It was in the news recently, was it not?
It was in 2018. This is where, again, for people outside of Canada, it might be news for you here. SNC-Lavalin was involved in a scandal.
So it's a Quebec-based company.
It's a Quebec-based company that does some engineering work.
Construction, engineering, all around the world. Right. Yep.
They were in the news because they were going to go into court for bribing the Libyan government from 2001 to 2011, right? And they had so much money, they decided to spend 48 million in bribes to the Libyan government. Wow. Now, if people don't know, at that time, the Libyan government was run by Muammar Gaddafi. The guy was pretty crazy. He's dead now.
Yeah.
Right? He abused his people and whatnot. And this is the type of company that went and bribed a foreign government so they can get contracts, because clearly that company doesn't know how to do business. So back in 2018, they were
investigating, right?
They were being investigated, and Justin Trudeau's government was pressuring the prosecutor, Jody Wilson-Raybould, to drop those charges or try to interfere and make sure they don't get prosecuted. Because if this company was prosecuted and found guilty, they couldn't get government contracts after.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
and that's how it should be. If you're doing this unethical behavior, you should not be, you should be punished. You should not be given any government contracts going forward.
Yeah, if you have 48 million to throw at Muammar Gaddafi already had money. Yeah. He plundered his people. Yeah. You had 48 million to throw around, and then for you to say, I need this money for our people, keep our employees working. So the thing was, this was done for the Quebec votes, because this company is mostly based in Quebec. Right? Yep. They only have 9,000 employees. So why does SNC-Lavalin,
So this is where some companies get special treatment. Where, because they're affiliated with certain parties. And in this case, it was the Liberal Party and, Justin Trudeau's affiliation here. And, whereas small businesses, yes, they're smaller employees, but they make up a lot more. This is what I'm like. Certain companies get like 0% loans, and small businesses don't get any support. And they make up pretty much, if altogether, they probably make up more votes than these other bigger companies like Bombardier, like, SNC-Lavalin, all these companies.
Bombardier is another issue too.
Yeah. So we can, they get special treatment, they get special preference, they get nothing, they get a slap on the hand whenever they do something wrong. Yeah. Whereas small businesses, can screw up by $10, $20 here and there, and then Sierra comes after them, And I think this is where the bigger you are, the government is more scared of you, and they don't want to take steps there because they'll lose votes.
So in this case, clearly they were going for the Quebec votes. The Liberal Party had other intentions where they didn't want the Bloc Québécois or the Conservatives to have Quebec, and for 9,000 people, for 9,000 employees, that company can fail on my books. That company can fail. I could care less for those. Like they say the company's too big to fail. There's always this saying, the company's too big to fail. I don't care. If you're not good with your books, you should fail. We shouldn't give you government loans. Because what do we get out of it? I give you a government loan, and as me as 0%, and me as a taxpayer, I don't get any benefit from this. Is SNC Lavalin going to build a house for me? Right? What were they going to do? So,
if anything, they're going to profit from our tolls.
They've been profit. So here's the thing. So it's funny. In 2018 was when all this bullshit was happening with Jody Wilson-Raybould, right? There was a lot of pressure happening. Blah blah blah. 2019 is when they sold their stake into the 407, and they made $3 billion off it. They made $3 billion out of 10% stake on the 407.
3.25 billion.
So how are these guys not able to pay off their 9,000 employees? I don't get it. What are you doing with that $3 billion?
And going back to it, so obviously Justin Trudeau is still our prime minister. Nothing happened to him.
He's made his friend from high school his scapegoat. So Gerald Butts, who is his personal advisor, was forced to resign.
That's it.
He
was resigned. Boom,
so he's the scapegoat.
Exactly.
But he didn't go to jail. He didn't get anything. He just resigned. He lost his position in the government. But he's a consultant for the government.
So I think accountability. We need to hold these politicians. At the end, they need to be held accountable. I think we need to audit things that they do, especially these apps, these software systems, whether it be SNC Lavalin, 407. We need to audit them. And then, there should be some type of disciplinary action, right? So if Doug Ford, as an example, I'll use that example, cost the taxpayers $1 million, there should be some type of committee he's got to go in front of, answer questions, and pay a fine based on his income. You know how in some countries, European countries, they ticket you based on your income. Based on your income, you should be forced to pay a fine. And then on top of that, your party should also be, if it was a party, issue here, then your party should also be, fined or disciplinary action should be taken. And then, this is how we're going to reduce this. Otherwise, what's the point? Politicians can burn our money and we're not doing anything about it. It's like at a workplace. If a manager or someone makes a silly decision where it costs the company, a lot of money, they would get fired. They would get, reprimanded, or they will lose their position, right? So why are we not doing that with politicians?
So the committees we have. So I agree with some of the things you say. We do have committees, but, these committees are just for show on TV, right? They come, they talk, they ask questions, and it's always bickering along the political lines. But I do agree that if we could find the government, so you find maybe the political party that went with this option, also find them personally. Sure, if Doug Ford went with this crazy plates, and if 10 people were together on this, find them personally, and then find the party as well. That way they don't have the funds to go and campaign to get more seats.
I mean, it's the same thing as, again, we got to treat, and him being a conservative, you got to treat, whether it be healthcare, whether it be, anything, or, our politics, they're running a business, right? They're running our government. And it's worth billions and billions. And if you make a mistake and it's very straightforward an error on your part where it was a silly decision, it was costly, and you should be held accountable to a point where you are fined. If we don't do this, then they can do whatever they want. And most of these guys are getting reelected. Trudeau got reelected.
Ford got reelected. Everyone's getting reelected, right? Everyone makes mistakes, so I should run for government and make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody gets held accountable.
Yeah, so, I bet you, as I said, if we're in private companies or anywhere else, we get held accountable. We lose those promotions. We get demoted. We get fined. And I think same thing should be happening here.
And the way the fine should be, I feel, if you're personally getting fined, it should be based on your on your net worth or
Yeah,
how much you're making.
income. Yeah,
just like
100%.
just like how European countries are doing
exactly.
it.
Yeah,
If you get a speeding ticket, it shouldn't be like $40. It should be, oh, you make $100,000, so we'll give you
exactly. Yeah,
$50,000 fine.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
It should hurt their
That's
pocket,
high,
right?
but 100%. I think we need to do more. I think even these committees that happen sometimes, they're usually with
It's
one
just
party or
it's
another.
political bickering. It's nothing.
It should be that
It should be the taxpayers, if anything.
exactly
Right?
It should
shouldn't
be like
political.
how we do jury duty. I think we should do it where a committee gets formed. If something goes wrong, their taxpayers come in, and I think they should. Obviously we'll have a judge and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then they should decide the politician's fate. From there.
Exactly.
I think,
If we shouldn't have any more of these political parties
because they
doing
get
this.
nowhere. They're just like,
They only ask questions along the party lines.
Exactly.
They don't do anything for us. And I think something that the public or taxpayers gets involved,
100%.
I think would help. That way you can hold them accountable for everything.
Yeah.
And like some of these things we listed is not even scratching the surface.
Yeah.
This is just things that happened recently.
And billions are lost annually by our governments because of wrong decisions, because they're not thought through, because they want to see their benefit, and at the end
they just want to get reelected for sure.
And it's about their seat, and they're getting paid a lot, and they're getting pension for life even by doing one term, which I don't agree with. But anyways, it's something that would not be acceptable, whether it be a soldier, whether it be somebody working. Imagine if businesses made this many mistakes as a small business owner, the CRA comes after you and they make an example out of you. Why can't we do that with politicians?
Yeah,
and then we'll have people who's serious enough and they care about it. Anybody doing ethically, making wrong decision, ethic violations, and you're not running ethically, there should be disciplinary action, and that goes anywhere. Like, I'll give you an example. Real estate agents get reprimanded if you're not performing ethically, right? So why can't we do that with politicians? And I'll leave it at that. I think.
We ranted a little bit too much. Sorry, guys. But we're coming to an end of this, and thanks for listening to us again.
Thank you.
End of the day, again, we need to hold people accountable, and that's the reason we started this, right? So, if you're following us on YouTube, like and subscribe. Leave a comment on maybe how we improve our podcast, whatnot.
Any other topics you guys want us to cover, let us know.
And look into Spotify. We're there on Spotify, and we're slowly going to other streaming apps. But if you need to find our website, we're on todaysview.ca. So thanks, guys. Thanks you for listening and watching us. Have a good one.
Thank you. Catch you on the next one.
See ya.